Thank you. Hi, good morning. My name is Daphne Kroft. I work at Bits of Freedom. First of all, thank you so much for inviting us. You have a beautiful program today. I think you're going to have a great day. So thank you for that. I'm proud to be part of it. And thank you all for coming. It's just past 9. I cheated. I had a little coffee, I must say. But so let's get started. Just to get an impression of who you are. Just like they say, you can get an impression of who someone is by knowing what book he or she reads or what music he or she listens to. I'm curious, who of you guys and girls uses VPN? Oh yeah, I like this crowd. OTR? Okay. We can win some new souls for OTR. Tor? Easy. So now that I know you, we can start off the day on a positive note. I'd like to congratulate you guys, because right now, at this very moment in the Netherlands, we are living in a country where we have net neutrality enshrined in our law, in our Telecommunications Act. And we don't have any data retention anymore. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Glad you're awake enough to be wooing for that. So this was the good part of my presentation. The rest is curse and doom. Take another sip of your coffee. No, that you're not having right now. And let's get ready for all the horrible things that are coming to the Netherlands pretty soon. But first, before we do that, today's theme was obviously security in times of surveillance. And the short part of my presentation is, in the next few months, we could be having the situation that we have more surveillance and less security. And that is due to 2 proposals that we expect to be going to the Parliament. And these are the 2 proposals I'm going to talk to you about. So before I do that, just a quick explanation about us, about Bits of Freedom. This puts the rest of my talk into a perspective. We fight 2 fundamental rights on the internet. First one is privacy. The second is freedom of communications. And we defend these rights. We fight this fight by doing legal and technical research. I'm one of the legal people, so sorry, I'm not a cryptographer. I'm embarrassed. And we help people empower themselves by giving them tools to make sure that they can work on their own privacy. We're going to talk a lot about privacy today. And I want to take a moment to ask you, what does it mean to you? Because it's a really abstract and vague term, and to a lot of different people, it can mean a lot of different things. Is there someone who wants to explain why privacy is important to you in your life? Anyone? Yeah, in the back.
They don't know where to send the drones.
Don't know where to send the drones. Someone else? So that is privacy vis-a-vis a foreign government? Is that your biggest worry? Yeah? Someone else? The ability to go somewhere without people knowing where you're going. And why do you think that is important? They don't need to know. Yeah? Sorry?
Amazon will soon have to know where you are to send the drones.
To send the drones. Yeah. Amazon will need it. So people won't use information against you? Last one? Sir? Be in control of your own data. These are all very interesting elements of privacy. I can tell you what it is for me personally. For me, it's all about autonomy. So, being free to choose the path in life that I want to follow, and not being nudged by commercial companies or snoopy governments to push me in another direction. Even if I make mistakes, I'd rather make my own mistakes than be pushed into another direction. So that is why privacy for me, it's an absolute must for freedom in general. One of the reasons why we're called bits of freedom. So privacy in our days, obviously, it's all about data and more data being gathered. A while ago, my colleague, Ton Sietsma, he got so angry about the whole metadata discussions. You guys know what metadata is, right? Yeah. That he decided to track himself. So he installed all kinds of trackers on his smartphone, tracked himself for a week to show what kind of insight this gives in someone's life, in this case, in his own life. So this is what happened. You could, I'm not sure if you can all see it, but you can see exactly where he was, who he was communicating with, on what topics he was communicating. So he was emailing colleagues about an intern. He was communicating with his girlfriend. You could know who his friends were. So it gave a whole social graph, the real social network of Ton's life. But then it's not only that. Data can also predict someone's behavior. In Ton's case, really just a small example, after a while you could predict his daily rhythm. And this is only metadata. So keep that in mind, what this already says about someone's private life. Now I want to talk about the first evil proposal, the Intelligence and Security Services Act, or de Wet op de Inlichting en Veiligheidsdiensten, WIF. The reason why the secret services want this new proposal is because they also want to have the content of communication. So not only the metadata, but also the content. So if you think back of your own life, what would this mean if they would do this with your communication? I mean communication based on whatever technology. So this is not only the phone calls to your boyfriend or girlfriend, not only the chat messages you have on a drunken Friday night, or your whole search history, and not only, you know, the bit of an awkward search history, but also other parts. I mean, your medical background, anything that says something about your sexual identity, your political preferences, anything. It will also be the content of every email you're sending. As if you're sending emails and every time putting the secret services in the CC. That's for now, but how will this be in a few years from now? The Internet of Things makes the inside of someone's life even more intimate. So that's not only the smart meter or the television that is listening to you instead of you listening to the television. It will be even worse because it will also be about the wearables that you're wearing on or even maybe in your body. Think of what the metadata said about Ton's life, and now what the content of communication will say about your life when it gets this close to you. Our fundamental problem with this proposal is that it is not about targeted surveillance, but the secret services will put out a huge dragnet and get in all the information they can get their hands on. How big this dragnet will be, we don't know yet, because the proposal isn't yet on the table. And how this will be done in a technical way, we don't know that either. But we do know that this is what they want to do. Why? Because they already can target specific persons. So if they think someone might want to do a terrorist act, they already can do this. So the only difference between now and this proposal is that they want that dragnet to happen. And why is that a problem? Because it's a fundamental breach of one of the pillars of our democratic society. We should be able to know almost everything our government is doing, or everything our government is doing. The government should know nothing about what we're doing unless there is a good reason to do so. Now, with this dragnet, innocent people who won't ever in their life do something wrong or be a criminal, let alone be a terrorist, will be surveyed in a way that is never happened before in the Netherlands. I'm not talking about the NSA. So you can imagine that we sometimes have trouble sleeping at night, and I can imagine that you will have this problem too in a few weeks, because this proposal, it could be sent to the Tweede Kamer, to the Dutch Parliament, within a few weeks. Actually, it could be happening this soon. So why are they doing this? Well, one of the things the Snowden revelations taught us is that the GCHQ advised the Dutch government on this proposal. So probably it's to get a better place at the table, a better seat at the table when they're negotiating on what data they can exchange between different foreign secret services. And is that something that we as a society are okay with? That we are gathering all this information as a way of negotiating. And actually, in one perspective, the Dutch secret services will be doing a worse thing than the Americans. And why is that? Because at least in theory, the Americans still have they make a difference between US citizens and non-US citizens. The non-US citizens are, well, nobody really cares about them. But there should be some sort of protection for the US citizens. What the Dutch government is doing with this proposal, they don't care at all. If it's about pirates in Mali or if it's about their own citizens here in the Netherlands, they will treat them exactly the same way, and that is a very shitty way. Oh, sorry, this is taped, right? Yeah. The other proposal is the police hacking proposal. You might know it already. It's been in the news for a while. It was an idea of our former Minister of Security and Justice. Google Glass really looks good on him, right? So the idea was, Ivo Opstelten thought, hey, all these criminals are going digital, we should be there too. So we should be able to hack into their laptops, smartphones, servers, systems, to be able to track them down. Well, even if you think that's okay as a goal, then you really have to think about how this is done. And then you come to the conclusion that they will be using existing backdoors, existing vulnerabilities. So what does this mean? Well, first of all, one of the things we think will happen is that the market for 0 days will increase even more. but it's will also maybe be a trigger to not disclose vulnerabilities, or as a company, not work on them. Because what does it mean for other parties in the chain? If a company knows that it has a vulnerability, should it not be fixing it because there is a police investigation going on? That could be an option. Or should they maybe work together with the police? Do we think that's okay, that companies are like a tool for the police? Another difficult question. And what about liability? If anything goes wrong, for example, data is leaked, what should happen then? Who is liable? The company or the government, or how should this be done? So, you probably all remember a few weeks ago we had this huge international cybersecurity conference in the Netherlands, in The Hague, which is, I mean, it's really important to have this issue high on the agenda. Stuff like responsible disclosure, it's really important that we have a decent discussion about that. But if, on the one hand, we're saying that cybersecurity is this important and we'll do anything to increase security, why, on the other hand, is the same government saying we want a proposal that means for the whole digital infrastructure that it could be less secure? We really think this will be a big problem. So, what to do? And what should the goals be? Well, for us, it's pretty clear. These two proposals have to be thrown away, swiped off the table. But this is going to be really, really hard. The first signs are that they could actually be adopted in Parliament. So, why is that? Why is this going to be such a hard fight? Well, I'm not saying that all politicians are evil. I'm not saying that all of them are stupid. Some might be, but they're not all. But it can very well be that someone who specialized in the French Revolution in history is now in charge of these two issues in Parliament. So we really have to inform them in a way that they can understand, maybe not on a deep technological level, but at least on a societal level, what the implications are of these kind of proposals. And even if someone understands what this means, it can also be that party politics are withholding them from doing the right thing. Because what political party in these days wants to object more security? Because that is obviously how these two proposals are being sold. It's for our own security. So to do this, to put pressure on those politicians and on those political parties as a whole, we must achieve critical mass. And critical mass means that we have to reach out to more people than us here, the people who understand and love technology and want to keep it in a good way, or even the lawyers that are not here right now, but also understand what the legal implications are. We must reach out to all those people who can put pressure on these politicians. My mother might still be thinking that Google, the search engine, is the same thing as a browser, but she must understand why these two proposals are a really bad idea. So I want to ask all of you in the coming weeks to be doing just this. You will be reading about it in a newspaper, you will be seeing about it on the news, but please talk about this with the people around you. Your friends, your family, please do so because we really, really need it. If you're doing that, and I can imagine that you guys are asked on a regular basis to help people with their computers and with installing all sorts of applications. Well, we have a solution for that too. Because on May 5th, the Dutch National Liberation Day, we launched the Internetvrijheid Toolbox, the Internet Freedom Toolbox. And there are some people who have been working on that toolbox who are here, so thank you so much. And in this toolbox, we explain what tools people can use, or we give them advice. And it can be something like how to choose a strong password to how to use Tor. So if people are nagging and asking you to help them, you can just tell them to go to bof.nl/toolbox, and so they can help themselves. And this might be the first step people are taking in getting more conscious about these kind of problems and actually doing something about it. So the question is, if a year from now we're back here again together in Security in Times of Surveillance 2016, the question is, what kind of situation will we have then? Will we have the new massive interception in the Security and Intelligence Services Act? Will we have the hack proposal? If history has taught us one thing, is that we did achieve to get net neutrality in and to kick data retention out for now. So we could be successful if we're working together. So please work with us, and please make sure that next year we'll have even more to celebrate. Thank you.
Six. Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. Now we have lots of time for questions, and I'm very happy that this year I'm not running around all the time. So over there, Christine van Vredendal is running with the microphone. I think I saw Adi first, and then...
Thank you very much for the inspiring talk. I must say that I've been watching this kind of battles for the last 40 years, mostly in the US. And I'm afraid that you are repeating the major mistakes that other groups had made and which forced them to lose the battle. You should concentrate not on the whole issue, but you should pick a few things which are the most irritating and try to convince the legislator, the public, etc., that those are overstepping the boundaries. You say there should be no law, police should not be given any powers, everyone should have total freedom, total privacy, etc. The reality is more complicated. The reality is that there are some good arguments for the government, some good arguments for the privacy advocates, and you should reach a compromise. I was listening very carefully. I didn't hear any sign of compromise in what you were talking about. So, while strategically you might be absolutely correct, tactically you are wrong.
Well, first, let me start off by saying any type of advice, please let us know, because if there's one way of not making mistakes others have made, we could learn so much from that. We are focusing on specific parts of these two proposals because they're much broader than just the two parts that I picked out for now for this talk. So, for example, in the amendment or in the Wet Computercriminaliteit 3, so Cybercrime 3 Act, that is the act in which the hacking proposal will be part of. There are other worrisome subjects. For example, they have been talking about that another part of it would be that people would be forced to decrypt their devices. And obviously that is something that we oppose too. But we think that this is such a ridiculous part of the proposal that we know that even the police are objecting to this. So if on the other side nobody wants it either, why should we be talking too much about it? Because it will only, if we are opposing to it, it will only give them something to negotiate with. Because then they could say, the decrypting part, we'll keep that out, but we want the hacking part. And we don't want to give them that position. So we're not talking about the decryption part, and we're only focusing on the hacking proposal. So that's just one example of how we're choosing to really target specific parts of new laws that are proposed. Another thing is that we are never advocating total privacy and security. First of all, because 100% security, as you all know, doesn't exist. And 100% security or 100% privacy, sometimes you want people to be investigated. I don't want to be in that plane if it explodes. But that doesn't mean that every single citizen should be subject of these kind of measures. But if you have any other tips or advices for us in the coming months, please let us know. Okay.
Yes, thank you for your presentation and all the work that Bits of Freedom does. I had a question, if it would be possible to maybe extend that toolbox with a set of flowcharts or tactics to convince the people around me. For an example, I tried to talk to my dad about surveillance and everything, and he came to me and said, well, I got nothing to hide. And of course, we all know that this is a flawed argument, and I can come up with whole stories, and even refer to the World War. He might even agree, and then still doesn't care. So how do I convince him? How do I do that with more pathos than just logos?
What did you say?
I tried to come up with the story that even if you have nothing to hide, there's no reason for a government to spy on you in the first place. He countered that with some stories about terrorist threats that governments have stopped, child pornography. Well, we all know what reasons are brought up here. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it just doesn't work.
I really like the idea of the flowcharts. So if this is a way of you volunteering for us, please, you're welcome. We could make that. Sure, why not? And a lot of people have different arguments against I have nothing to hide, and we can put them all in that flowchart. One of the arguments that you could use is that you don't know what you have or haven't to hide. So now in this specific situation in society, maybe you feel rather safe, but you don't know what is going to happen in a few years. And I'm not talking about the Third World War. I'm talking about, for example, if let's say if the PVV gets into power, that might change a lot of things for a lot of people who feel rather safe right now, but won't be feeling safe when they get into power. I mean, and the same thing goes for other political parties. That goes for the SP or the Christian parties. So, and another thing is, the question isn't, do you have something to hide, but why are they asking?
I know.
He doesn't know, yeah, sure. So, but I think it's a really good idea, and if there are more people who are willing to make this flowchart because they encounter the same problem, yeah, we have number 2, number 3, okay, this is going up 4. Or these are questions, maybe, I don't know. Then obviously, send me an email, and we'll make sure this is going to be happen.
So I spotted 2 more questions here, so let's...
Hi, thanks for your work, and I enjoyed your talk. I feel like what you're telling us in terms of the legal proposal is basically that they're legalizing what they're already letting the NSA do and what they're already doing. When Europol was attacking Tor hidden services, in a couple of cases, the people involved with the Dutch government have said that they were hacking, or maybe they had zero-day exploits. So it kind of sounds like the thing we see all over the world, which is that they want to legalize all the things they've already been doing now that they're all about to get caught. And since it wasn't legal, they have a really big political storm on their hands. And so I kind of wonder what can be done from the outside to help about that. As one of the journalists that's been working on the Snowden documents, is there like particular information that would particularly embarrass these people if we were to reveal it? Is there specific things that if they had done it in the past and now that if they do it now, or we reveal it now, that we could get them fired? Are there specific people that if they were hacked and it would be really useful to show that? Like, for example, the European Parliament is being monitored by X-Keyscore, and this is a thing which has come out in German politics. It seems like, you know, if the entire Dutch Parliament would be monitored by mass surveillance and we were to discover that, and their proposal is essentially to make that happen, would that be somehow useful or helpful to talk about that? And is it actually the case? They're just legalizing what they're already doing?
So, so there's the U-turn construction. That is an English term, right? U-bochtconstructie. That has been going on up until now, in which secret services could say, or at least in the Netherlands, they could say, we're not spying on our own people. Oh yeah, by the way, we're getting huge amounts of bulk data through the back door about maybe that same group of Dutch citizens, but hey, we didn't do it, we didn't gather it, but they still can use it. So this was a problem in the last few months in the Netherlands. There was a court case about that, and it really has put the Minister of Interior Affairs in an awkward position. He almost had to leave his position, but he could stay thanks to party politics. So they were probably to some extent already having a huge amount of data that they could use, but it wasn't legal yet to gather it themselves. And as you're saying, they pushed for the boundaries and now trying to legalize that same situation. And this is happening in the hacking proposal too. So yes, if we could prove that this is a problem to those in the situation, or those in power, those who can change this, that would be a gift from the sky. So if there's anything in there, in that huge stack, that would be very, very helpful. And so that is one thing, and I think one of the other elements that could really make a change, but that is on a less political level, that is the whole liability question. Because for these huge stakeholders, this is a huge problem if they are liable, if they're found to be liable. So we really have to put a lot of research in that too. Yeah. Who?
Then I had one question here.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I would like to ask, you talked about the police hack proposal. It wasn't clear to me if the proposal is about police hacking into someone's computer after getting a search warrant or without.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the idea is that they should get some sort of search warrant, but the problem is that let's say the supervisory judge that should be giving this doesn't know any, well, in the situation now in the Netherlands is that these judges, they have on average 15 minutes to look at these cases. So imagine these judges already having really, really limited time, and not knowing the technological implications of these kind of measures, we think, just as is done right now, that these warrants are given. It's just well, it could be done automatically because they're practically never not given. So, and another thing is, something that we worry about is that you gave the example of someone's laptop, but the problem is that what we know now of the proposal is that it can be any device connected to the internet. So, exactly, the pacemakers, the smart cars. You can imagine AMSIX to be very worried about this sort of proposals. So the scope is so huge, and then there's this one supervisory judge who has to think of all those implications. We really don't think that is enough of a boundary. Where's the mic?
Hi,
Oh,
sorry. I'm trying to understand the legal situation in terms of the constitutionality of the laws that you've been talking about, because in the US there's a problem with due process that would render that kind of law unconstitutional, at least as applied to citizens of the US. And I'm wondering if there's anything comparable we can talk about that would actually make it an unconstitutional or illegitimate law, even if it were passed by the parliament.
That would be really difficult. So for the first, well, it would be difficult to prove. That would be the first step. So in the case of the Security and Intelligence Services Act, when do you know that these measures are taken and that your communication was involved? Practically never. So of all those people involved, just a very small part comes before a judge in court. And even then, it's not always the situation that this proof is presented. So maybe for that one person, he or she knows that this was the case, but for the rest of them, they will never know. So that is one problem. And for the hacking proposal, there is a very interesting due process question about, I guess you know the Bundestrojaner? No? Okay, so in Germany there was this, let's say, state Trojan used to hack into systems of alleged criminals. And this was researched by the CCC, and they found that there were all sorts of flaws with this system. But one of them was that the police couldn't prove that no others entered the same system. So how can you use something as proof in a court case if you're not absolutely sure that someone else put it there and that someone else came in through the same back door that the police used themselves? So this is a huge problem in the due process perspective of this law.
I saw some more questions.
I've got maybe a bit unusual question. I'm wondering actually why people are so worked up about government reading your email, but are absolutely fine with Google Mail reading your email. 500 million people are absolutely fine that everything they sent or received is indexed. 2 billion people use Facebook on a phone, and Facebook access your contacts and your calendar. What is different?
Do you mind?
Not using Gmail, not using Facebook.
And why not?
I don't need them in particular, but the thing is, many of these companies, what they do, they say very simple. Our privacy policy is like that. If you don't like it, we're not going to give you our product. And the question is, well, I'm kind of old generation. The young generation cannot live probably without WhatsApp, Facebook, and so on. So it's either you are part of the gang or you're just not using it.
Facebook is already old, right? I mean, it's Instagram now, yeah. But I hear what you're saying. So, again, I cannot respond to this question for everybody. You're asking, what do people think? I don't know what people think. I can tell you what I think. For me, the important element in this question is, doelbinding, but then in English. So the purpose binding. Yes, thank you. So the purpose for which you gave your data. I'm totally fine with telling my doctor a lot of things that I won't be telling my neighbor, and vice versa. And it's not because I'm giving it to Facebook that it's all right for the government to have it. The data that are this, like a shadow of your own life, or maybe that are your own life, should not, if you don't want that to happen, be scattered around all over the place. And actually, I'm not sure if you're right in the analysis of that people don't care, because I think with this particular problem, it's a bit like climate change. The implications and the problems are so huge, and people feel so small. And if we're not talking about secret services, we are talking about Facebook, just as you did, that people just tend to not do anything at all. But when we go out in the street, sometimes we do that to talk to people about privacy and why they care about it. When you really ask people what they think about it, and so not use that very abstract term privacy, but when you make it concrete, people do care. Or, I'm not saying people, the people we talk to do care.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to say something about, I think people do care, but people don't know, people who understand the problem don't know how to communicate to the people who don't know. So maybe you could put something on the website for people like us, how to tell them what to do. Like he said also,
yeah.
but not just flowcharts, but also examples, for instance, how to do that. And also another thing I want to say is, can we maybe, is there a petition we can sign on, or?
Good question. Okay, so for the first thing, actually on our website we do have several answers to the question, but I haven't anything to hide. Ik heb niets te verbergen. Just go to our site and you'll find it. That's the first part. And if you would need other things to communicate to others, please let us know. The other thing is there a petition? Well, for the Security and Intelligence Services Act, it will be sent. It will be put online, and it will be an internet consultation. So everyone in the Netherlands, whether you're Google or you, everyone can respond to that. So follow us on Twitter or sign up to our newsletter, and we'll let you know whenever this is happening, so you can let the government know what you think about it. But we don't think this is enough, so we're thinking about other campaigns or actions that we might be able to do. If you have a good idea, please let us know. And the same thing goes, follow us on Twitter or our newsletter, and we'll let you know about these kind of campaigns.
Okay, thank you very much for your talk. And just a short suggestion with regard to the typical answer, I have nothing to hide. When I have a discussion with people and they argue like that, I just say, okay, give me your smartphone, give me your laptop, and let me check it for 1 hour. Let me see what website you visited, short messages you sent, and people you called last week. And that would be really interesting. You have to prove them, and that works.
Did that work on your father? Didn't check. Okay, next time you'll tell us.
We're pretty much out of. Oops. We're pretty much out of time now. So I would like you to join me in thanking Daphne again. And you're still around for this talk and you're rushing out in the coffee break?
For the train. I have to run for the train.
Yeah. So it's easiest to reach her by email, which you can find down there. So if you have questions specifically to her, then email her, and otherwise email the General Bits of Freedom. And please join me in thanking her for the talk again.